Hey everyone, Karnak, Star Wars Armada Explained. We're going to be looking at the Advanced Transponder Net today. It is an offensive retrofit, brand new card for Rebellion in the Rim. So Advanced Transponder Net, if you see there at the top left hand corner of the card, you will see the offensive retrofit icon. That's how you know that's where it equips to. Opposite of that, you'll see its point cost, which is 5 points. Advanced Transponder Net reads Modification Friendly heavy squadrons at distance 1 to 2 prevent engaged squadrons from attacking ships. So this card, in a nutshell, is this squadron heavy? Yes, you have to attack it. You can't attack my ships. Essentially, Advanced Transponder Net is trying to introduce some counterplay to Intel, because this Intel gives all squadrons heavy at distance 1 that are enemy squadrons, not friendly squadrons. So the counteraction is like, okay, well, if you want to shoot my ships and if you want to get around my squadrons, you have to give them heavy. But now, if I have this card, you still have to shoot my squadrons. You can't shoot my ship. Let's run through interactions then. Let's dive right in and break this card down. So the first thing I want to point out on this card is that it says modification. So modification is a special trait in Star Wars Armada. What modification does is that you can only equip one card of modification on that ship. Meaning, for example, if you wanted to bring both Advanced Transponder Net and like high capacity ion turbines, they both share the modification monkier, meaning you can only bring one or the other. You can't have both. And there's quite a few cards that have that modification keyword. And this is just to prevent some combination of cards from interacting with each other, especially in regards to like high capacity ion turbines and advanced armament, because that increases your die armaments out of your left and right hull zones. You can see where that kind of just like suddenly you have a ship that only would throw 3 dice, now it's throwing 6 dice, and you get some crazy and unique combinations. So they put that limiter on there to make you force you to have decisions about what's most important, getting this extra die or making it so my squadrons are able to better protect my ships. Again, pros and cons to these modifications. All right, let's break it down. Friendly heavy squadrons at distance 1 to 2 prevent engaged squadrons from attacking ships. So, in this example, we're going to say, I'm just going to play out real quick how engagement and attacking ships work. So, for example, we're going to have this TIE interceptor here protecting the Star Destroyer, and there's some pesky rebels that want to come shoot you. So, typically, when a squadron wants to shoot a ship, it needs to be at distance 1 of the ship, and then it can shoot it. It can bomb away. Pew, pew. But if there's another squadron that's here, is like, hey, I'm protecting this guy. You can't shoot that ship because now you're engaged with me. And again, that's an RNG. Is if you're engaged with another enemy squadron, you have to shoot that squadron. You can't shoot the ship unless that squadron has the keyword heavy. Like, for example, if it wasn't this interceptor here, which interceptors do not have heavy, and instead it was this YV666, which does have heavy, which again, if you look at the keyword, it says you do not prevent engaged squadrons from attacking ships or moving. So if this YV666 was here instead, B-Wing can ignore him and just blast away at the ship. Now, how typically most squadron games have been happening is that you could be protecting your ship with interceptors, but then the enemy would just bring in a ship that has intel, which gives enemy squadrons at distance 1 of you heavy. So they just would bring in the ship. Okay, these guys are now at distance 1 of my Hawk, which gives out intel. Now these TIE interceptors are heavy. Then the B-Wing comes in, ignores the squadrons, blasts away at the ship. That's how it has been working. Now we have this new mechanic of now this ISD will say is equipped with Advanced Transponder Net, which now is friendly heavy squadrons at distance 1 to 2 prevent engaged squadrons from attacking ships. So now when your opponent brings in this intel and gives heavy to these TIE interceptors. Now when this B-Wing comes in, guess what? He cannot shoot the ship because the advanced transponder net is working on these interceptors, meaning that they have heavy. The engaged enemy squadrons cannot shoot the Star Destroyer. They have to shoot the squadron. So now you can kind of see where this counterplay is coming back into effect to try to negate how powerful Intel has become, along with some other aspects of rebelling in the Rim. So that is how they're trying to accomplish it. Now, this transponder net goes out to distance 2. So here we have the rings. We see the black here is distance 1, red is 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can see here that these TIE interceptors can be out because, again, at distance 2, these squadrons here. And when you're doing your measuring, you are measuring from the physical plastic base of the ship model, not the ship model, but the ship base, the plastic clear base. You measure from that closest point to the closest point of the squadrons. You can see there, even if it's just barely touching, that's at distance 2. That's how far it can work out. And again, look how big their engagement circle still is. Why am I mentioning this? Well, some people make the mistake of sometimes they measure from the cardboard to the squadron, which is not the case. You only ever measure from cardboard when making attacks. Again, sometimes people make the mistake of measuring from the shield dial and the shield frames, which you absolutely cannot do that. Again, the physical plastic base is where you measure from for when you're measuring the at distance 1 to 2 for this card. So that's some cool counterplay with the interceptor, or with your regular squadrons if the enemy brings up intel and puts intel on them, but also encourages some more potential Imperial fleet diversity with squadrons. We might see more YV-666s on the field, or more decimators, because typically these squadrons, they're generic versions. Nobody brings them because they're either too expensive, or they're too slow, or they just don't do anything. Because again, if they have heavy, they're not stopping from squadrons and then just murdering your ships. And then sure, you might be able to counterpunch and kill a couple squadrons, but you're still not stopping that whole ball from just wrecking your entire fleet. So this is where, again, this card is coming into effect. I can put these super high health, high hull squadrons in the way so that these bombers have to try to fight and shoot through my squadrons rather than shooting into my ships. Now again, note that it says you can only it only prevents engaged squadrons. So for example, if I have my squadrons placed here and this B-wing is here, so when you draw that line of sight, because it does cross over that tip of the ISD, that is technically obstructed, meaning they're not engaged. So then the B-wing could then shoot the Star Destroyer. But I mean, that's easily taken care of by just spreading your squadrons out. So that's advanced transponder net. Let's touch on a couple other aspects of this card. Again, I think it's going to open up some interesting list diversity. One thing that I see some players are going to do is putting it on like a Gazanti, not necessarily needing to put it on the Star Destroyer itself, although you can if you want to. But I see some people potentially putting it on something like a Gazanti and using it as kind of as a blocker for your ISD, kind of running out in front, because even from here, 1 to 2, if you've got some of your squadrons placed in some good positioning, that's still covering that ISD. Now, granted, they could fly up and shoot your Gazanti if they wanted to, but then at least they're hitting, a flotilla that you typically are not going to care too much about compared to attacking your prized flagship. So some interesting thoughts there. One thing, though, that is slightly irritating, and it kind of sucks because it only continues to devalue another card, and that's Instructor Gorin. So Instructor Gorin is, while a friendly, non-heavy squadron is at distance 1 to 2, it has counter 1, or increases its counter value by 1. So pretty much, this card is still worthless for 7 points. It is now even more worthless than it was before, because if you want to bring Advanced Transponder Net to stop people from attacking your ship, you can't also then bring the guy that's helping your squadrons get more counter. And I'm sure it was intentional, so Imperials just would automatically list build to stack mass counter, but it also kind of sucks because then that you just still have even more of a reason to just not bring the guy. It's being counterintuitive to cards that would otherwise be helpful. So that's one aspect I wanted to make sure I was pointing out. Otherwise, for Advanced Transponder Net, I am not aware of any other crazy rule interactions or anything else going on. Again, I want to make sure being crystal clear that, squadrons that are heavy, whether they naturally have that keyword or when they're given that keyword by squadrons with intel, I want to make sure it's being just clear on that interaction there. So, but of course, if you feel like I missed anything or if I got anything wrong, please be sure to point it out, make a comment, let me know about it. I do appreciate you guys, following along, watching all these videos. I do want to note that I was going to do a video on Vantro instead, and I had to put that video on hold because I've made some interesting discoveries with Vantro, and I'm doing very thorough research on him to give a very thorough video, and I think you guys are going to be really impressed with what I've discovered with him. When will that video come out? Soon. Probably will do a few other cards first because I want to make sure I'm getting through him. But you guys are great, and I'll catch you all next time.